Okay, I think that's going. Okay, so the subject of this is Sam Cedar versus Jimmy Dore, but I figured, people don't necessarily know who those people are. So it's the Democratic Party versus progressives. And in that, it's really the DLC, Democratic Leadership Council, version of the so-called now mainstream Democrats versus progressives. Now, Sam Cedar isn't actually this mainstream Democrat. He's a liberal Democrat, and as far as I'm concerned, a candidate for not being a mainstream Democrat at all. He is pretty progressive. On the other hand, he's buying a little bit this idea that, I'm really interested in the mechanics of politics, and therefore we need to do things according to the mechanics of politics. Now, I think he's forgetting that Hillary is also that way, and she's missing a sociological effect that's happening, a sociological momentum slash inertia. Momentum and inertia are closely related. So he's sort of representing in this debate, but really it's two liberal people, a progressive Democrat and a progressive. So Jimmy was like, hey, I've thought about this, and if Hillary wins, we're kind of fucked. It'll be hard to fight her. It'll be easier to fight Trump. Therefore, it'd be just as well if Trump wins. Now, I don't think Jimmy really said we should hope Trump wins, but he probably did in some of his upset times. So let's just say he's from a faction that's actually saying, like Susan Sarandon, hey, there'll be a revolution. Trump will cause a reaction that's worth it, given that Hillary will put the TPP through, Hillary will bomb Syria, Hillary will, et cetera, et cetera. And she's better at it. It'll be hard to fight her. Okay. Sam Cedar's on the side of that's stupid. We'd be better off with Hillary's nominee getting on the Supreme Court than Trump's. So, kind of end of story, right? Now, I made the same calculation as Sam Cedar, and I voted for Hillary, and I told other people that this was serious and they should do that. And so, I'm kind of on the Sam Cedar side in that respect. On the other hand, the way I look at this division, this infighting among liberals, is that, okay, let's say there's two sets of liberals before the election has happened, right? And there's two plans. One is like, what do we do if Hillary wins? The other one is, what do we do if Trump wins? And some of the liberals are going, you know what we can do if Trump wins looks more promising as political action than if Hillary wins. Sam and I are like, no, no, it's not worth it. We can pressure Hillary. We can pressure Hillary from the left more effectively than we can pressure the other guy from the way right, which is how it's going to turn out. Look at his cabinet, we might be able to pressure him to here. Jimmy and Susan Sarandon's theory is like, no, we can actually bend and break this system with those guys as our foil. Remind you that I went with the Hillary calculation. I didn't want Trump to win. That's a terrible result. I much would have rather had Hillary and pressure her from the left. But you have, before the election, some people saying, hey, we'd be better off with Trump in terms of fighting Trump, not because Trump would be good, but everybody would pay attention to the badness. Obama can go ahead and drone bomb people and get away with it and be called a socialist and a liberal, And that won't be the case with Trump. We're about to find this out. By the way, since he's bombing Syria, we'll see how the reaction. So far, it's not promising. CNN's like, stop talking about my Russians and we'll talk about how awesome we love those beautiful bombs. Brian Williams, I love them beautiful bombs when they shoot off. They're so pretty. So the fact is, Jimmy Dore, Susan Sarandon, they didn't elect Trump. That happened, and they were just making comments about it. They didn't cause that to happen. If you think that they are the blame when Hillary didn't even go to Wisconsin, then you'd have to be kind of a moron or reaching. But they had this idea that, hey, we'd actually be better off if Trump did win because we could do all this stuff. Now, they're wrong about, in my view, of us being better off. However, they did have a plan of what to do if Trump won. And they weren't wrong to make a plan like that because Trump won. So it's time to collaborate between the Sam Cedars and the Jimmy Dores and say, okay, I still disagree with you that this is a better opportunity than pressuring Hillary, but we'll never know because that future didn't happen. That present is not happening. But what was your plan again about with Trump? And let's join that together, because then you'd find, well, there's similar plans. But no, and especially Sam Cedar, I really like him. I think he's very smart. I actually, I'm a member of the Majority Report as of a few months ago, and I feel good about that. It's my kind of sense of humor, and he's my generation, and that's kind of obvious, like the view of punk music and stuff. But I happen to find him, insightful. Like I watch his show, he thinks of things that I'm like, oh, that's a good point, and I value that. And I've watched him or listened to him since Air America. At which point I thought, who's this fucking Sam Cedar idiot? I just want to listen to Janine Garofalo. Now I'm the opposite way. He has Janine on, and I'm like, Janine. No, I like Janine Garofalo still, but not as much as Sam Cedar. So I think I should support that. I wanted to support that, and I'm continuing to. However, this is a real serious problem because after every single election, right, the mainstream Democrats, which is this DLC kind of Democrat, so pro-war, pro a lot of bullshit things I think of as conservative, they always demonize whoever was to the left of them. It's like, okay, who thought up accusing the Clintons of whitewater? Oh, it was Jerry Brown running to the left of Clinton. And they hate that. After every election, it's not just Nader that gets nailed. Every single election, they're like, you guys said liberal things and made us seem too liberal, and those white honkies wouldn't vote for us because you scared them off. Every fucking time. Well, look, I am a voter. Yeah, I've been involved in politics, but I'm a supportive person. I've set up websites for candidates who have won and various things, but I get to have whatever position I want. I don't have to have a position because it attracts other people to the people I support. If my positions are dangerous to you, I understand you distancing yourself from me. But if you take my support and then you also want me to shut up, that's not okay. And that's the basic situation. They want my vote, but after every election, they're like, you lost it for crazy socialist liberals. They help demonize the progressives. And, I thought, they try to sell this thing that we would be pushing more for the leftward direction, but we just can't. And I don't think so. I think the Democrats, the mainstream, the control of the Democrats, the DLC Democrats and even the alleged liberal ones like Ellison and Tulsi Gabbard, that they don't like going any more leftward. Their idea of leftward is, yeah, left of where the country is now, left of where the Republican Party is, sure, but no more left than where the Democrats are now, right? They want to keep having these wars, and they think it's a great idea to bomb countries where we have almost no legitimate interests. When we do have a legitimate interest, we get our oil from there. No, that's very indirect. You're not allowed, you just buy the oil or not. That's the legitimate part of that interest. You just buy oil from there or you don't. So I wanted to get to the commenters in the chat, who I really enjoy. I think they have great commenters. They're not like super intellectual in their input. They seem like really smart people that like these jokes about, you're going to call us cucks? Okay, we're cucks, and this kind of thing. You're Gorka. And but one thing that's really bugs me is that a lot of them, not all of them, 50-50, maybe 60-40, they are still hating on Jimmy Dore. Like, they blame him. And it's just a part of what the Democrats, the mainstream Democrats, have done to progressives every single time, is wasting their energy hating on a fellow progressive. Oh, he's not that smart. Well, Jimmy isn't as smart as Sam about the mechanics of politics. But he's also on to something, which is that progressives have my whole political career, progressives have been trashing on Democrats and then like arguing about, but they're better than Democrats, better than Republicans, we got to vote for them and stuff. And our votes cast that way, except for all the people, especially younger, that aren't voting at all, because it's like, seems like bullshit. Right. So we're supposed to support this party, but the thing is, they're not trustworthy. They are not trustworthy with liberal issues, right? You know, Obama, there's a mortgage crisis. He comes up with $1 trillion or whatever to solve it. Does he give the trillion to the mortgage holders, the people? No, he gives it to the banks. And here's how stupid that is. If you give it to the people, those people you gave it to, they owe it to the banks. If you give it to the people get it and get to have a roof over their head. And the banks get it because that's who the people had owed it to. That was the crisis. So you give the money, you could give it to two people that both end up with the money benefiting from the very same trillion as if it was 2 trillion, or you could just give it to the banks and it's 1 trillion and the people could go fuck themselves. That's the kind of democratic solution that we get. And they tell us, well, because you're naive if you could expect more than that. I mentioned this in their chat today about, look, the problem is people have figured out the Democrats can't be trusted either. The fact that their policies are better than Republicans, and in fact, you know, their actions, when they act on a policy in that rare case, is better than when the Republicans are acting on a Republican policy, that doesn't make them trustworthy, you know, about NAFTA, about jobs, about actually caring for working class people, or any of traditional issues. They're not mysteries. We're not trying to figure out what they are. There's some traditional positions for the working class. They don't have many of those. And the working class can't trust them. And the people were telling me, well, you're naive if you think you should be able to trust the political party. And I'm pointing out that, well, that's not a very good slogan. When you're running 100 candidates or a couple hundred across the nation, saying you shouldn't expect me to be trustworthy is not a very good campaign slogan. Politics, when it comes to voting, does include trust. And if you lose people's trust, that's a problem, which is why when you have a hard decision and one makes you more trustworthy and one makes you less, you might want to go with the more trustworthy, even though maybe you'll make some more money or whatever. Maybe you'll keep your seat or whatever. You know, your party, your general brand will be more trustworthy. People that make a hard decision and lose their seat because of it are afterwards considerably more trustworthy than those that would never let that happen. And trust is important, and it's a thing that makes you make ethical decisions better, right? Just in general, the pressure is, it's the easiest thing becomes make the ethical decision correctly. You might take a hit or two. It might be financial. Just figure that you'll make it. Figure that you have to do the ethical thing no matter what. You'll have more trust. You don't care about trust, then you can't expect Jimmy Dore to give a shit about the Democratic Party. And I don't, the Democratic Party can go fuck itself as far as I'm concerned. I'm done. I might work for someone local that isn't getting much help from the Democratic Party, but I'm not phone banking for any statewide people that are Democratic candidates. Screw the Democratic Party. And I am in Maine with ranked choice voting. So I will still, yes, rank Democrats over Republicans for the foreseeable future, but on an individual case by case basis. Like, I couldn't promise I wouldn't vote for Olympia Snow over Hillary, but probably it'll be Democrats ranked higher than Republicans. But I'll vote for Mickey Mouse. I'll write in Mickey Mouse as the #1 vote and vote my second vote for Democrat and third for Republican before I'll vote for a Democrat as my #1 choice again. Because fuck them, they've been screwing me over. I don't trust them. But we're more trustworthy than the Republicans. Not a good sales pitch. You both seem like crooks.